Oh, now I can't hear you.
Oh,
Let me
who needs to hear me?
let
Blah
me
blah blah blah
check
blah
my.
blah 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 blah
Uh,
blah. Hello, Video Rangers, and welcome back to another episode of Nothing New, a show nearly free of worries, but not entirely. Today I have with me Erica Layton. Erica, is it possible to worry about the past?
this reminds me of the guy who went on that retreat back in March and emerged in June. Oh boy, was he in for some news.
What is it that you do out there in California?
I help design and build virtual training simulations on one of these things. Saves people having to actually be in the same place at the same time, which right now is pretty useful for some folks.
I saw a video of you maybe from a few years ago, and I'm not sure if it was something that you designed or something that you were just kind of experimenting with, but it was a plant planting simulator.
There was also the landscape salad bar experiment, which I was
The
rather
landscape
happy
salad bar
with.
experiment.
You on your VR device, there's a salad bar in front of you. Yes, it looks like a salad bar. It's you can tell it's a salad bar.
It's got Jello.
And I didn't get as far as Jello.
Okay.
The physics in Jello would be very computationally expensive, but awesome. You go and you get your plate. You put your tiny trees on your tiny plate, and then you shrink yourself, and the plate becomes a sort of bonsai landscape that you can be in.
You do have a website that I'm not sure if it's been updated for a while, Sky Islands.
The website was, I guess, kind of related to that idea conceptually. It started as an experiment where I was teaching myself to code from scratch. There's still some web VR scenes which you can just like fly around, look at stuff. Though you might feel a little nauseous. They're not really optimized for VR.
What do you have to do to optimize something for VR so that you don't get nauseous?
If you mess with the horizon line, people are bound to get sick. A couple years ago, I was prototyping a locomotion system where you have toilet plungers in each hand, and you're using them to climb surfaces. So I made the mistake of not having a horizon line. I'm like, okay, I'll just make a sculpture in space that you climb. And oh boy, did I leave my stomach behind. I have a pretty strong stomach for simulator sickness, but that was some bad news.
Are there any VR programs out there that are designed to purposely make you nauseous?
No, I don't know of anything intentional, but I'm sure it's been done, at least, in private for shits and giggles.
What if you were to make something where if you like tilt your head to the right, the image will shift to the left, like it'll do the opposite? Yeah.
I feel like I've had that accidentally happen in mixed reality, which wasn't as bad because you're seeing essentially holograms projected into your space and it has eye tracking, but it just swapped the eyes. So it just felt like things were inside out.
What exactly is mixed reality?
It's like augmented reality for your face. So
what does that mean?
VR, it's like, okay, you strap a plastic brick to your face. It has screens in there. It has little lenses, stereoscopically creating something that looks three-dimensional. But that's all you're seeing. It's all that's on the screens in front of your face. Augmented reality, as most people know it, is you're looking through your phone camera and you're seeing your real environment on the other side of the phone camera. But you're also seeing stuff that's been added to that environment.
Yeah.
Head-mounted augmented reality or mixed reality, or as I like to call it, AR for your face, is as if you took two of these and you stuck them over your eyes.
I see.
The result of this is that I could go, okay, I'm going to put on my mixed reality glasses and look at some content that looks like it's sitting on my floor over there, even though it's digital. There's not very good occlusion for it yet. So occlusion just means hiding something.
So you're talking about like if you were to import a virtual object into your living room and it was like on the other side of your coffee table or something, it might be tricky for it to figure out that it's behind. Okay.
So you might end up with things like, okay, I've made this nice UI, like these nice, buttons and stuff that are holographic and floating in front of you. But they're sunk halfway through the table and part of them is missing. Oh no, what do I do?
That's what like Google Glass was, wasn't it?
I've never gotten to try Google Glass. I once saw somebody wearing one. He quickly became embarrassed and removed it. The problem with Google Glass is that it made you look like a bit of a fool. So the controls are all like this. So you put this thing on,
really?
sort of weird glasses, then you went like this a lot to control it. And then it blinked in ways that made people think maybe you were recording them, which is creepy. And it's kind of, I don't know, to me it's kind of annoying that it's just one eye. Because you're like, okay, where are they? Okay.
What are some interesting applications that you've seen this used for, or like things that you think potentially this stuff could be used for that you're excited about?
I think it was Intel was experimenting with live volumetric capture for sporting events. The idea being, okay, let's put a bunch of cameras around a sporting event, take video from a bunch of different points of view, and then algorithmically stitch it together into a mesh in real time.
So like theoretically, if they're like all calibrated correctly and everything was running fine and they were high enough resolution, you could go pretty much anywhere in a stadium and with like your goggles on as if you were actually there, like, or if someone's on the field, you could walk up to them and walk around them and whatnot.
That's the idea. Although you probably would still have blind spots because you can't have cameras everywhere. What I've worked on in the past that I'm still pretty interested in is using this stuff for remote communication. So like say instead of you and I sitting here and we have sort of an approximation of a conversation, but even if we could sit in the same room as just like blocks of abstract shapes and communicate with body language as well as spoken language, there's something about that is so much better than video conferencing.
Yeah. I mean, what are we but blobs of abstract shapes?
Yeah. You can communicate a lot if you're a floating dodecahedron with little cubes.
Yeah. Do you have any go-to avatar?
I still really like the avatars that we used when I worked at Normal VR, which are actually in the game half and half. Sort of if you could cross a barn owl with I don't know, maybe like a cartoon slug. We used these things for work meetings when I was working there. And we met in a forest that we built. But we could all get in there in really bad moods. And by the end of the meeting, we'd often look at each other and go, wow, I feel a lot better. This is a meeting. We should be miserable.
You've mentioned forests and trees a few times throughout here. And we've known each other since we were little tiny children, like this big. As a kid, I would never have necessarily expected that you'd be working with AR for your face and things like that, because you were very outdoorsy. And how do you relate those two things? How did you get from one to the other, or did you ever did you bring it with you, or what's the deal, Erica?
So the common thread is that I like making stuff, and I like making 3D stuff. In terms of where it came from, I remember reading about how virtual reality at the time, how expensive it was to render stuff. I thought about that since I was a kid, like that was some really cool thing I'd never get to do, but I just thought was really cool. And then I got a chance in college to take a Maya class, and I thought, okay, it was like the one class you were allowed to take 2 times because it was so difficult. But I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I got to borrow an early headset and try it. And I was like instantly hooked. I'd been doing some 2D design stuff up to that point. I was like, oh, this is so much better. This is so much more interesting. I need to figure out how to build this and do this. But I'm still very much into 3-dimensional interconnected systems of living things. Like I've been building terrariums and stuff. That's Zappa's house. Zappa's a lizard.
I happen to have his book right here.
He likes to sit around and soak up light and heat.
That's what I like to do as well.
I'm about to build a new terrarium for our hissing roach colony. Mr. and Mrs. Hissing Friend had lots of babies, and they're getting large, so we need to build them a new home.
So what are some in real life sorts of things you get around to when you're not working on virtual spaces?
At the end of college, I started making lace out of human hair because it was the smallest thread I could get my hands on, and it worked. It takes so long to do that, and it's so hard on my eyes, though, that I've pretty much stopped. Oh, there was one time I got a hold of an ostrich egg shell and painted it green so I could use it as a green screen and make it into kind of a magical see-through orb.
Around that same time, we had a somewhat regular art time.
Oh, yeah. I think that started when I got a hold of, I think, about at least 600 plastic cups. And I thought, okay, let's do a weird video with this.
There were enough cups, like pretty much exactly the correct amount of cups that you could connect them all together and they could bend just enough to reconnect to themselves. Oh, yeah, as a
cup torrent. Yeah, you have footage of you chopping the whole thing and it moves in this really weird way. Yeah. I remember the color reversal thing where I was attempting to come up with a color of paint I could paint on my skin so that if I inverted the colors on the video, it would look like the color of my actual skin.
Yeah.
But then like completely like paint my face and stuff so that I'd look like this weird kind of dead ghost person, but everything else would be flipped. I think if I was going to do it now, I'd probably cheat and do it digitally, but then project it back onto my face and use that as a reference for the paint. If I still really wanted paint to be a component of it.
Well, speaking of painting yourself blue, at one point somebody mentioned that you were now part of the Blue Man group. Have you ever been part of the Blue Man group?
I have not, but there was one time I went to see Star Wars dressed as a Twi'lek, which involved painting myself blue and making big blue head tentacles and stuff.
One other thing I remember, you'd eaten an orange and then taken the skin and like reformed the orange.
Oh yeah, that's a fun thing to do. If anyone out there likes to hand sew and likes weird, creepy stuff, I would highly recommend sewing orange peels together and drawing it into shapes. It's really fun. I made a little table and chairs set like that. Like I made the table and chairs out of clay and then sewed orange peel around it as a skin. It had feet. It had little like human feet on it too. If you wait until it's like half dried before you start sewing, then it's a little sturdier too. Pro tip.
Pro tip. There's one last thing that I kind of remember, and it would have been 4th grade or something. Someone had mowed the grass recently, and you took the grass and you made a bowl out of it, like while you're eating lunch. And I remember thinking, like, that's impossible. That's just not.
You know, I can't remember that, but I wish that I could, because I'm sitting here right now going, okay, was that my coiled basket phase or was that my twined basket phase?
All right. So I've got a big envelope here in my mailbox, and we've got a few questions. Should more people get split tongues from Hariva?
You know, I wonder if that would depend on whether you can already curl your tongue. You can move the parts separately, but I'm not sure whether it's like easier to do that if you already have the tongue curling ability or not.
Yeah,
that would be something to look into first.
Yeah, if you can't move them independently, what's the point of splitting your tongue?
If you're in a social context that is okay with split tongues, by all means, go for it. Awesome, you do you.
What's the trippiest website you've ever visited from Purple Plum?
Off the top of my head, I'm pretty partial to the home website of the artist Kabibo. He does really, really brilliant things with computer graphics.
I found a website for Kabibo Advocates, which is just a law firm. What's your most famous internet moment from NMRDC?
Yeah, I worked at Hanover High School in the library for a while, and at the same time I was quietly making these weird YouTube videos. And I'd say my most internet famous moment was the day after the kids discovered my YouTube channel and shared it with each other.